Lafiani. Pray that everyone is Lafiani, at peace, being peace. At this point in time, this is the Ialosha. Apetabi Ola Omi Oshunyemi Akalatunde. And I missed out on day 10 of Coco Cure because I had an accident that day, a car accident. Wasn't bad, my fault. I actually hit a stationary object. So I was a little bit disconcerted and perturbed, so I didn't feel like really talking or socializing or doing anything like that until I had relaxed and gotten my mind right after that. So sorry that I missed that particular day. I did break my fast with a kale nori wrap roll type of thing. So I had kale salad, which is just kale, nutritional yeast, dose flakes, sun-dried tomatoes, regular tomatoes, and red onion and olive oil, and then spike to taste. And I put some crushed red pepper in mine too because I wanted a little spicy. Normally you put avocados in it too, but I couldn't find any ripe ones, so I just did that, and I rolled it up in a nori sheet, and that is what I broke my fast with. And they were at more than one. They were really, really good. So still feeling good, still feeling upbeat and wonderful after my fast. And I wanted to speak a little bit on parenting in this video. And I think I got a couple of requests for other videos, but haven't been online. I've been online even less since I stopped fasting than I was when I was fasting. So once I get back on and I can pay attention to what the requests are, then I'll go ahead and make videos for those as well. But a lot of comments are made on my videos about my children and my parenting style and things of that nature. So I wanted to address that in this video just so that everyone would understand. You can't bring that in here. That's too loud, baby. You have to play that in your room, not in my room. So just wanted to speak to that and explain where it comes from and what my goals are as a mother. So I was raised in the fashion that was typical at the time when I was a child. There's something on the screen that's irritating me. I am from a very, very small southern town, Columbia, Tennessee. And my parents had 7 children, and we were not rich, and it was a town in which we were the racial minority. And my parents had grown up in this town. My mother was born in Memphis and raised in Cleveland for most of her life. But when my grandmother divorced, they moved back to where my great grandmother was living. So my grandmother moved back in with her mother when she divorced. And so my mother, from that time forward, had been in that town as well. So it was a small southern town, and we were a not well-to-do, very large black family. And I feel, as I've reflected on it many times in my life, that the style of parenting that I was raised with and that I still see active a lot today comes from within black families, comes from our experience and the experience of our ancestors during the Ma'afa that people choose to call the slave trade. I refuse to call it that because you can't trade human beings, and you cannot trade my ancestors. You did not trade my ancestors. So it is the Ma'afa, the great tragedy is what I choose to call it. So during the Ma'afa, we were not allowed and we didn't feel comfortable or safe expressing our love for our children. And because we didn't know how long family units were going to be together, and because human beings were looked upon as something that you could sell, you know. So if you had a baby and it was nursing, someone may come and take it away from you. So and then that was looked upon as okay. That was the norm at that time. I think that we developed a defense mechanism of not attaching and not bonding to our children. And so in this way, using this mechanism, we have a way of parenting that keeps our children at arm's length. Now, in addition to that, we also were being systematically taught to hate ourselves, to hate our skin and to hate our hair, to hate our body types, to hate the resonance in our voice, to hate the African cadence in our speech and our speech patterns, which are also African. We were taught to hate all of this, to hate our mothers that we came from and our fathers that sired us. We were taught that all of these things, anything coming out of Africa and anything black and nappy and loud and powerful was bad, was negative, was, you know, too much and not genteel and not ladylike. So we were taught to despise all of that, and we grew into a sense of being that we still suffer from today. Africans all over the globe, where we believe that the less African something is, the more advanced it is. And the more African it is, the more backwards it is. So those of us whose ancestors suffered under Ma'afa internalized this, and our African brothers and sisters who remained on the continent of Africa internalized it as well and are still living with it. So we are living in this psychosis. You know, it is a mental illness. And the majority of the reason that we still suffer from it is because we do not worship our ancestors. We do not revere our ancestors. Because if you revere your ancestors, called Egun, in the Yoruba tradition, in the Anago tradition, my tradition, then they will help to heal you from that psychosis. But I digress. Okay. Okay, Nubia. Nubia. Nubia.
Yes.
What am I doing?
I guess what to do.
Okay, so can you talk and sing right now?
No.
All right. Please stop. Please stop. All right, thank you. So we are molded, we are socialized, we are born and we grow up in this psychosis. And this quite obviously influences how we raise our children. In addition to that, we are in an environment, the environment of the United States of America, the environment of Europe, the environment of, you know, if you want to break Europe up into parts, the UK or France or Spain or even the Caribbean to a certain degree. We do not feel safe in these environments because our ancestors were brought here under duress and they suffered greatly. Suffering is a very powerful, very deep understatement for what happened to our ancestors in these places. So because of that, we don't feel safe here. We do not feel safe having children. We do not feel safe raising children. So in all of this mental whatever, we are still giving birth and raising children. That leads to a type of parenting that is distant, a type of parenting that is cold, and a type of parenting that has a tendency to be extremely verbally abusive, mostly physically abusive, and tearing down and detrimental to the African child. So, I love my parents. My mother is now an honored ancestor. My father is still on the physical plane. I love them. These are the people who sacrificed for me before I came to this plane of existence. So I do not say this to denigrate them in any way. But the way that I was raised, and I'm fully aware and I have internalized that they gave me the absolute best that they possibly could. And they loved me dearly. But the way that I was raised, and I'm sure that if you are a person of African descent watching this, the way that most of us were raised was abusive. It was painful. It hurt. The things that people would say to you, the things that people would do to you were painful. Your childhood, while my childhood was fun because we spent the majority of our time outside, we didn't play in the house. We didn't stay in the house. There was no such thing as video games when I was growing up, so there was no reason to be in the house. So everything we did was outside, and that was great. That was wonderful. That was so much fun. And then my mother, she really encouraged us to read, and we had this huge library in our house. So I had my fill of, I had my pick of any book that I wanted to read. That was glorious and that was fun. My mother would make sure that we would go get to the parks and to swim and all those types of things. Those things were glorious. But a large portion of my childhood, when I think about the rearing, was painful. It did not feel good, and you left situations and you left conversations wondering if you were wanted, wondering if you were loved, wondering if, your parents were happy that you had been born. And unfortunately, I know now as a parent that, you don't always give birth under the greatest of circumstances. So sometimes before the child gets here, you too are wondering if this is the best thing to do. And I understand that. And like I said, I'm not saying this from a perspective of holding a grudge. Bring me my phone, babe, right there. I'm saying it on the counter. I'm saying it from a perspective of speaking truth. So when you're raising children like that, thank you. When you're yelling at children and when you're always having to put them down and when you're refusing to let them feel close to you and refusing to let them, hug you and let them be around you and let them feel your energy and get your energy and commune with you. When you are doing that, you are hurting your children. Just like it hurt when you didn't get enough closeness to your mother. You're hurting your children when you're doing that to them as well. There is a way to correct a child without making the child think that something is wrong with him or her. Correct your children in a way that lets them know this action is wrong. And I know that you, the essence of who you are, is goodness, is beauty, is love, is perfection. So don't do this action over here because that does not reflect who you are. Let your child know that. Don't make them think that they're stupid for the decisions that they make. Don't make them think there's something wrong with you and I expect you to make this bad decision. And I can't believe you did that. Who is that helping? You're not feeling good saying it. They're not feeling good hearing it. And if they're not feeling good hearing it, how are they going to heal to the point where they don't do it again? I parent my children as much as I possibly can, and it is my daily, hourly prayer that I'm parenting them from love. Because if they are sure that I, their source, loves them deeply and completely and unconditionally, if they are sure that there is nothing they can do to be outside of this love, then they will always feel secure. And security is what you want for your child. It is from a space of security that a child goes out into the larger community and does well. So that is what you want for your children. You want security. Does this mean that you don't discipline? This doesn't mean that at all. Does this mean that I never spank my children? This doesn't mean that at all. I prefer not to. I don't enjoy doing it. But it doesn't mean that that's not ever necessary. But it means that at the end of the day, when they're about to go to sleep and when I'm about to fall asleep, we are both at peace. We are all at peace. And they know that I am focused on their best interests and that no matter what, they will always have my love. Through this lifetime and any other lifetime that they live, they are aware that my love is constant. It will never end. It is not confined to this physical body. It can stretch across oceans and across miles, wherever they want to go, whatever they want to do. They know that this love is the foundation from which they grow. That is how I raise my children, because that's how I want them to feel. That's what I want them to know. Don't do that. Don't do that. If you do that, you're going to run the risk of smashing her fingers or something like that with the door. Do not push the door. I don't want to hear the door moving. People are texting me. Sorry. I've got adult children texting me, toddlers over here doing their thing, and I got teenagers in the next room working on reports. So yeah, this is my life. Welcome to my world. But you have to parent from a perspective of love. There is one book in particular and one magazine that assisted, two magazines. There's a magazine called The Compleat Mother, Compleat. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right or wrong, but it's an old school hippie mag. And I read that, and there's a magazine called Mothering. Both the first one I said, Complete or Compleat Mother, that one is grassroots. You know, that one is coming from let's make a change in this society, let's do better for our children. Mothering still kind of has that rich white suburban woman slant on it, so you kind of have to pull from it what you can get, but they are helpful in reminding you to be a gentle parent, to be a loving parent. Your children are not your enemy. Your children are not manipulative. Your children are not out to get you. They're not out to trick you. They're not out to make you do anything. They are seeking at all times. My mother is in the spirit realm, and I am still always seeking her approval. And that is what your children want from you too. Pause and reflect. Anytime you see your children doing something completely crazy, pause and reflect and think, when I was that age, if I had been doing that, what would have been my reason? They're not out to get you. They're not trying to get on your nerves. They're not trying to make your day difficult. They're not trying to make your life difficult. They have actual goals in mind. They have actual things that they're working on that sometimes appear to be at cross purposes. But they're not doing this to get you. They're not trying to manipulate you. So don't approach them from that perspective. Approach them from the perspective of, why are you doing that? Well, if you do that, this is what's going to happen. So that is not a good idea. This is why we don't do that. Let them know. They're not your enemy or enemies, whatever the case may be. So think about it from that perspective. But the book that really assisted me, there are two. The first, foremost, that has to be mentioned, and I think that every mother should have, and when my own daughter became pregnant, I gave my copy to her because I couldn't get another copy at the time, so I gave mine to her, so now I have to get another copy for myself. But anyway, this book is the Continuum Concept. Every mother should read it. This expresses the essential nature of motherhood, the essential nature of family and community, which, as our ancestors have been telling us since we became human beings, it comes from motherhood. Family and community is the outgrowth of motherhood. This is why mother is at the center of every great family and every great community, and every great empire has a great mother at the center, holding it together and leading it and guiding it. And you will gain an understanding of how and why this is the case reading the Continuum Concept. It is the story of a wealthy white woman who, on a whim, went to live with the indigenous people of the South American rainforest. She was there on an expedition, on safari, as white people love to go on safari. So she was there on safari, and she began to notice all of these social differences. So after the safari was over, Nubia, when I call your name, what are you supposed to say? You're supposed to say, yes, mommy.
Yes, Mommy.
Okay, please turn around and stop.
Okay.
Don't do that. Thank you. Sit down. Play with the things that belong to you.
Mom, I just threw my towel away.
You did? Okay. So she lived with them for the time of this expedition, and she saw all of these social differences between, how they acted and interacted, and how we as modern people act and interact. And so she made it a point to find a way to go on another expedition just to watch. Just to watch. And this book is the total of the conclusions that she came up with, the summary of the conclusions that she came up with. And it's beautiful. It's just a wealth of information. Mothers need to read it. You need to read it before your babies are born. You need to have this information because we are walking around thinking that our children are out to get us. When in actuality, we are born into this physical plane, and our bodies and our spirit, which is what grows our body, has an expectation of certain happenings. And as an infant, an ancestor who has just returned, if you don't get these things, if you don't start off by getting these things, then what happens is you begin to seek them outside of yourself. And this leads to certain types of negative actions. This leads to certain types of negative thoughts about yourself. And this is this is what's behind most of the negative behavior that we see in society. So read the Continuum Concept. Get that Compleat Mother, COMPLEAT, and subscribe to Mothering. And see, begin to implement the things in your life and the lives of your children. See how your relationship and relationships overall, but definitely your relationship with them changes. And it is from this perspective that I also educate my children. Are you messing up my closet?
No.
What are you on right now? Because I have everything in a particular order. So if you are there, how are you climbing on it without changing the order of it? Are you changing the order of my things? It looks like they're changed. Okay, I don't want that to happen. So could you please go and take your toys, and there's plenty of space in your room for you to play with your toys. Right? Okay, let's stand up. And let's try that again. You want to sit in my lap? Do you want to sit in my lap?
Yes.
All right. Come on. No. Stand up. Stand up, please. Okay, let's try it again. Just sit. Just sit. All right. There we go. So, that's the perspective that my parenting comes from. I don't want my children to ever wonder how I feel about them. I don't want them to ever wonder whether or not they're loved, or whether or not they're wanted, or whether or not they are a vital part of my life, and hence a vital part of the world and their own community. So I seek to make sure that they know that. And at the same time, they have to understand that life has tasks to be completed, and life has order, and they have to learn to follow that order. But for the most part, your children learn that by example. If you allow them to be a part of what you're doing, they're learning how to act properly through your example. They're learning how to live properly through your example. So this is where the majority of teaching comes in. This is where the majority of schooling comes in. Okay, come and let's prepare this meal. And do you know why we eat this? We eat this because of so and so and so and so and so and so. Okay, come and let's pray. Do you know why this is the way that we pray? This is the way that we pray because it's so when you do this prayer, these are the results that you get. And then you may add this stone to it to get this result, and take this bath and wear this oil. All of these things are teaching your child how to live life properly. Your child should be included in your life. As much as you can include them, you should be including them. That's what should be happening. That's what should be going on. You do not change the whole way that you are and the whole way that you live when you have a child. Continue to live your life. Of course, that first year, you're going to have to be more sedentary to give them a chance to get acclimated to being on the physical plane. But after that, put them on your back and take them with you. Let's go. Let's finish this journey. Your destiny is the most important thing to you. Your child viewed you from the spirit realm and came and wanted to be a part of what you were doing because they watched you fulfilling your destiny and said, oh, I want to be doing that. And then when they get here, we stop doing it. Keep being yourself. Allow them to be a part of you being yourself. Set a good example. Be the example. Lead by example. Remember, whenever you feel the urge to dominate anybody or anything else, that is an unnatural urge. Domination is not necessary. In every relationship, it does not have to be about somebody dominating and somebody submitting. That is a patriarchal, horribly violent, abusive view of life. Your children are younger than you so that you can lead and guide them and keep them from harm. But that does not mean that you dominate them. They have their own destiny, and their destiny is the most important thing for them. You guide them gently so that what they can do is fulfill that destiny. That's what you do. So I mother from that perspective. I teach from that perspective. And on that note, if you are needing Unschooling Consultation, remember that that is offered on my website. I would love to talk to you more about the specific issues that you may be having with your child. And we can do that in a consultation. Remember, if when you see in your child, right now I'm seeing in my 5-year-old and my 3-year-old a lot of short attention span. And that does not fit into my world. If you have a task that you're supposed to be doing, you have to be able to complete that. That is part of how the household runs smoothly. Is like I said, the teens are in there, they have some schoolwork to do, they're getting it done. The toddlers have to be over here completing this thing that they're supposed to be doing, but their attention spans have lessened and lessened and lessened. And what I realized as I meditated on it was two things. First of all, in the process of relocating to Georgia from Tennessee, we ate a lot of what I consider to be junk food. I know it would be regular food for the rest of the world, but our bodies are not accustomed to it, and their little bodies are not accustomed to it. So that's the first thing. It's a lot of sugar and starch that they've got to work off. And the second thing is they watched a lot of movies. My children in general do not watch television except on the weekends. And we even only listen to particular types of music except on the weekends because I don't want their minds full of junk. Your child cannot develop to her or his highest potential if you are allowing the program director on the internet or the program director on the television or the program director on the radio to decide what's in your child's head. Those people cannot decide. I decide what's in their heads. So we only have prescribed things that we listen to, prescribed things that we watch, and we only watch those on the weekend. But in the process of moving, in the process of relocating, that has shifted. So they were watching a lot more television than what I'm normally comfortable with and eating junk. So I was like, okay, well, we got to back up off of that. We may have to have a time of not even watching it on the weekends, but reminding them that life is out here. Life is not in this screen. Life is out here. So you have to learn how to navigate life. Being able to navigate this screen is not really that important. This is pretend. But life is what's going on out here. So just doing things to remind them that that's the case. This is why we go here and play. This is why we go here and shop. This is why we go here and drum and dance and do capoeira. All these things we have to draw them out of this tiny little square, which isn't real. So when your child is focused on that tiny square, you're going to have attention problems. Because there's a lot of wild action going on the television, and that's not what it's like in the real world. So if that wild action isn't going on, their attention can't be held. It's not right. It's not good. You don't want to set that up. So all of that to say, a lot of what we're viewing as problems in children today that people feel like need medication or things like that are dietary and are based upon their ritual. Because remember, your routine is your ritual. So if you have a ritual of having a certain amount of action, then that's what you're going to become. So hyperactivity, all of those things, ADD, ADHD, all of those things, they have other underlying causes that as a parent you want to look at and take care of before you go the next step of doing more drastic things like Western drugs and giving your children Western drugs. And you're creating an addict when you do that. I used to work with youth that have been incarcerated, and they were all on those drugs, the Ritalin and all this kind of stuff. And some of the drugs that they were taking were the same drugs that they gave my mother when she was stricken with Alzheimer's. So it's very high, powerful psychotic drugs that were being pumped into these children. And when the majority of the issue was they felt disconnected from their mothers. And when we would sit down and have counseling, that's what would come out in the counseling session. So anyway, all of that to say, if you need a consultation for your family, please go to the website www.oshetura, institute.com, and get a consultation so that I can give you a call so that we can discuss what's going on with your children and try to get to the root of it. Because when we heal, everybody does better. Everybody feels better. Everyone's purpose in life is to help to bring about the good condition. Where there is no sickness, there is no untimely death, there is nothing that overwhelms us. So this is my contribution to bringing about the good condition. Okay. Gotta go. Got a client coming over shortly. Peace and blessings to everyone. So happy for all of the comments. I'm glad that you guys are enjoying the video. And I pray that you are enjoying your portion of E-Ray, your portion of the blessings that you asked for before incarnating at this particular point in time. Okay. Or until next time.